Thank you very much for listening to this week's talk on the Sedra of Terumah. And we are dedicating our learning to the safety and success of all of the soldiers in the IDF as we continue our fight against evil terrorists and the speedy and complete healing of all of the wounded, and also for the refuah sheleima of Rifka Yittel bas Rochel. And as we go into the month of Adar, the Wednesday is the second day of Rosh Chodesh, the first day of the month of Adar. And the word Adar itself has got a hint to the title of this talk, the power of one. If we look split the three letters of the word Adar into Aleph and then the last two letters Dar, this is a hint to the one, as referring to Hashem Echad, the Lord, the Hashem who is one, and Dar, which is a form of the verb to live or to dwell. And Adar is the month that we are going to be celebrating Purim and the huge impact it had on our people at the time and continues to have on a daily basis throughout all time, and there's reference to that in the Megillah. So that is part of the emanations that come, the spiritual waves that come with the month of Adar, and we are also reading the Sedra of Terumah when we talk about building a home for Hashem. This is the beginning of the Sedras that deal with the construction of the Mishkan, of the tabernacle in the wilderness, in the Midbar, which was a forerunner to the Beis Hamikdash in Yerushalayim when it was built many years later. But all of these themes come together, and really this power of one, the fact that we literally build a home for Hashem in this Sedra. And Rav Sachs Zatzal points out that the Jewish people is not a nation of buildings. We are not a people that construct edifices and monuments and point and say, this is how great we are, but the height of this building, the magnificence of the architecture. But we are builders. We want to build societies, we want to build communities, and we want to build strong units of people who come together in the service of Hashem. And this is the strength of the Jewish nation. And when we are looking, we see this power of one, the power of one that is Hashem, who comes to live in the home that we construct for him. And again, this power of one is apparent in the very early words of the Sedra, when obviously there has to be a fundraiser, because this is a project, a capital building project. And we have the Pasuk chapter 25, verse 2, V'yikhu Terumah, and they shall take to me a portion, an offering, me'es kol ish asher yidveno libo, from every man whose heart will motivate him. Tikhu es turumasi. And Rashi comments on this phrase, yidveno libo, whose heart will motivate him. The word Loshon Nadova, the word Yidvena, is an expression of voluntary contribution. Vahu Loshon Rotzon Tov, it is an expression of goodwill. And this is in contrast to the shekolim, to the half a shekel that we read about last Shabbos shekolim, that every single person had to give half a shekel. It was mandatory. The poor person would not get a discount. The rich person was not allowed to give more, but that was mandatory. The offering, this for the collection for the Mishkan, was something that was completely voluntary, and this is actually in contrast to the requirement, really, I would call it, to give tzedakah. And this is something that can be mandated, that a person who was known to be prosperous, have funds, was actually able to be compelled to give the whatever percentage, up to 20% of his income, to tzedakah. But the contributions for the Mishkan relied on the goodwill, and that goodwill was flowing freely to such an extent that at a certain point in the project, Moshe Rabbeinu had to say, no more, don't bring any more. They had too much, they had collected too much. And don't think that's ever been said in the corridors of HMRC, that the tax inspectors were just groaning under the weight of the excessive voluntary contributions and had to tell people to stop, not bring any more taxes. So this concept of the power of one, the importance of one, each individual was bringing of their own free will. And this was so valued because of that. It couldn't be mandated, because Hashem wants his home to be constructed by people who want to do that and are not being compelled to do that. And we have a concept in the rabbis tell us that certain mitzvahs, for example Shabbos, or there's a mitzvah of refraining from coveting what somebody else has, not being jealous of what other people have, not wanting what other people have. And if a person observes that, the rabbis say it's as if they observed the whole Torah. So in that one mitzvah, somehow there is that concentrated essence of the whole Torah. And this doesn't really, on the face of it, make much sense, because if we have a total of 613 mitzvahs, and not all of them are going to apply to any one person at the same time, but still we know that there's more than one mitzvah that applies to us that we do have to observe. So how can the rabbi say that if you observe one mitzvah, then it's as if you observed the whole Torah? And I think that we can actually look at the way that each individual contribution was so valued in the collection for the Mishkan. And similarly, if you think about all the various, it wasn't only money or money equivalent that was being given. It was time, it was talent, it was the desire to be part of this community project and bring whatever your talent was. And Hashem has made us all differently. We have different capabilities, different inclinations, and it is up to each one of us as individuals to identify them, these talents and capabilities, to harness them in the service of Hashem, in the construction of the Mishkan. And so when we have this idea of if we would perform one mitzvah, it's as if we observed the whole Torah. I think that the message is that yes, all of the mitzvahs that apply to us, we have to observe all of those. However, whatever talent we have, we can use that added extra of the talent that Hashem has given us and use that in the performance of a specific mitzvah that resonates with us, that actually is part of my nature, part of my makeup, and that is something that I excel in. And I want to actually use that as the driver for an even closer relationship with Hashem and with those around me. And I think completely perfectly timed, as we are with the beginning of Rosh Chodesh, with the beginning of Adar, and our thoughts are turning, are magnetically drawn towards Purim. And when we think of Esther and the role that she had to play in the unfolding of how the Jewish people were going to be saved from the clutches, from the terrible fate that Haman, together with Ahasuerus, was actually planning, principally Haman was planning. And if we actually look at the words of the Megillah, and I think they're very telling in terms of the power of one, as we look at it from the human angle. And this is Megillah Esther, chapter 4. And this is when Mordecai has told Esther of what Haman is planning and what Haman and Ahasuerus have actually concocted together. And he tells her that she needs to go to the king and she needs to implore the king to save the people of the Jewish people. And Esther informs him, "Vatome Esther lahasoch batatziveu el Mordechai." And Esther said to Hasoch, and she Vatitzavehu el Mordechai, and she commands him to tell Mordechai, Kol avdei hamelech va'am madinos hamelech yodim. All the servants of the king and the people of the provinces of the king know, asher kol ish v'isha asher yavo el hamelech, that every man and woman who will come to the king, el hechotzor haponimis, to the innermost courtyard, asher lo yikore, who has not been called achas doso. There is one law that applies, lahomis, that such a person should be put to death, levad me asher yoshit lo hamelech es sharet hazohov, besides the person whom the king stretches out his golden scepter to. V'choya, and such a person will live. Va'ani lo nikresi lovo el hamelech zeh shloshim yom, and I have not been called to the king this 30 days. And so here we see that Mordecai is telling Esther she has a job, she has a mission, she is in a position to potentially be an agent of salvation for the Jewish people. And Esther tells Mordecai a very well-known piece of legislation that anybody who has not been summoned to the king, to Ahasuerus, will be put to death unless on a whim that suddenly he will be kindly disposed towards the person who has come uninvited, and he will then stretch out his golden scepter. But if he doesn't do that, this person who comes unannounced, uninvited, is immediately put to death. And Esther is not telling Mordecai something that he doesn't know. And clearly her own insecurities, she is not feeling the power of her one. She is rather worrying about the technical, terrible fate that potentially is going to happen to her. But what does Mordecai say to her? And that this is a few verses later in verse 14 of chapter 4. Umi yodea, and who knows, im la'es kozos higat lamachus. For a time like this, you have attained the royal position. And so Mordecai is, on the one hand, perhaps castigating her, telling her off. But on the other hand, I think he's asking her to tap into the fact that she has been put in this unique position of being the queen, having such close access to King Ahasuerus, to the Emperor Ahasuerus, even though he hasn't called her for this past 30 days, and even though the harem was a place of great intrigue and insecurity, and today's favourite is tomorrow's cast off, and nobody could be sure that they would actually retain the king's favour for any length of time. However, Mordecai is saying, you are there now, and who knows if this is the reason for this moment, for this opportunity to save your people. You are the one, and you have to believe in yourself, and you have to go with courage and confidence and perform your mission. And I think that this is telling us, along with the way that each individual brought their unique contribution to the Mishkan, endowed with talents and possibilities and resources that really were in place just for the moment to come to the Mishkan bringing these gifts. And similarly with Esther, that soon we read and we relive all of those possibilities of Purim in our own time. But we too need to take that message from the Mishkan, from Esther, know about the power of one, know about the power of one that comes to dwell in the month of Adar, that Hashem, the Aleph of Hashem, comes in the month of Adar. And this is what gives us our strength and our continuity. And please God, we should all merit to have a month of Simcha as individuals and for the whole of the nation of the people of Israel. Thank you very much for listening. Wishing everybody Chodesh Tov, a good month, and Shabbat Shalom.